Yeah, it's really neat.
Sounds really
Pretty
cool.
incredible.
I
All
haven't
right,
seen
we're
it.
going to call the meeting to order. This is the June 7th, 2016 meeting of the UD3 School Board. And let's begin, as always, with introductions. And Mark, you can lead us off.
Mark Perrin, Middlebury.
Jerry Ripton.
Rick Scott, Bridgeport.
Nick Colston, Shoreham.
Bob Ritter, Middlebury.
Peter Burrow, Superintendent.
Peter Conlon from Cornwall.
Lorraine Morris, Middlebury.
Steve Orzak, Middlebury.
Patrick Green, Middle School Principal.
I don't have my name tag, so I don't know who I am. Bill Lawson, Principal.
Kathy Deeman, Assistant Principal.
Nick Beauchamp, Student Representative.
That comes with age, Bill.
All right. Well, Leonard, I assume that you are here for an agenda item and not just under public comment. Thanks very much. Okay, we got two sets of minutes that we need to approve. Let's take them one by one. How about a motion to approve the May 10th, 2016 minutes?
So moved.
Rick?
Did you say incredible minutes?
Is there a comment? We're open for discussion now.
Who seconded that?
Bob.
Okay.
And commented. Any additions or changes anybody would like to make? All those in favor of approving the May 10, 2016 minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody want to abstain? The minutes from the May 17th special meeting.
So moved.
Mark moves we approve the May 17th meetings.
Second.
Second from Nick. And any changes or additions anybody wants to make? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you very much. And who's on financial matters? Lorraine?
Yes, we've had two sets of bills since the last recording, and so May 17th, Peter Conlon generously agreed to help me out.
And they were really good bills, so you know about them.
General Fund, $610,221.13, and from the Food Service, $36,775.17. And then today, JP and I read bills, and General Fund, $839,059.42, and Food Service, $12,000. And I would move we approve both sets of those bills.
Second?
Thank you. All those in favor of approving those sets of bills as read, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Thanks very much. We have written reports from the principals, and did you all want to add something, Bill?
Well, the only thing I guess I would add is that commencement is coming up on Saturday, and so if there's anyone who wants to be involved with the handing off of the diplomas, they should contact Kathy so we can be prepared for that. So, today we had our final assembly, marched down the Route 7, or north on Route 7, to the Memorial Sports Center, and that all went very well. It was a nice ceremony. The weather cooperated for us magically, so it was all in all a good day.
Well, do you want to update on hirings as well?
I did do some of that in my report, and then the most recent, you're just testing me because it's not too much. We hired Caitlin for physical education, so my physical education position is complete now, and in my next written memo, I will have Caitlin's full name. I spent some time with her today.
That's cute.
I didn't get enough time to get the pronunciation down. And then I've been with a team interviewing for a temporary English position to fill a one-year leave yesterday and today. So I have 3 candidates, and actually made an offer to one candidate today, and we're waiting to hear in the next day or so. So hopefully that will complete my hiring.
And we hired 2 special educators. And we hired a learning lab tutor and the college counselor planning coordinator. You wrote about that.
Right. That's in my written report. I don't know if I mentioned it. Can't remember. I wrote this a week ago. I can't remember whether I mention the 2 special educators or not, but
They're yet to be filled in the report.
yeah, okay, great. Great. So, and we're very pleased, Will Mackey, who is coming back to us. He, 2003, I think it was, he said we had hired him to do the Learning Lab, and he's been off at Burn Burton and Vermont Academy, and he's coming back. He's dual licensed, which is a rarity these days in both math and science, has advanced degree, both math and English, and he's he's licensed in both those, has advanced degrees in both of those subjects, and he will be very versatile in terms of teaching the full range of both the English curriculum and the math curriculum. So,
And coaching.
And coaching. So he's, I think, going to become a father next fall, so I'm not certain that he's going to start coaching next fall, but he'll definitely coach next spring.
Great.
And we're obviously very pleased with our selection for the post-secondary college planning coordinator. We were really amazed that we were able to attract this individual who's fairly well-known, Sarah Soul, in the Chittenden County, Burlington area for her work in helping students, assisting students getting into post-secondary work. So we're very pleased.
You seem more than qualified.
Yes.
Great. Patrick, anything to elaborate on?
Sure, I'll first
It's your last opportunity to really to take up the floor here.
I guess I'll first start by apologizing for the tardiness of my report, just handing it to you tonight. But kind of continuing on with the hirings, so Bill mentioned Will Mackey, a new hire who's going to be a new father. His wife teaches at MUMS, and she won't be starting the school year with us next year because she'll be on maternity leave. So we have yet to fill that position. We've interviewed some folks, and just given the nature of how things work in the spring, for maternity leave, a lot of the 3 folks that we had pegged as finalists for that all accepted full-time positions elsewhere. So we're going to be re-advertising for that position and starting that process again. But I'm really optimistic that we'll get somebody great. Now's not a bad time to be advertising for maternity leave because folks know kind of where they stand for next year. So the chances of folks getting kind of scooped up after applying at this point in the year is much less likely. And the only other position we're looking to fill is a .2 FTE counselor position. And we have interviews for that tomorrow, actually. So
Does a .2 FTE draw many people?
no.
Why would you hire at .2?
Well, we currently have it's our SAP counselor, so they work with families and students around prevention of substance abuse and things of that nature. We currently have a .4 FTE person who's leaving to move down south, and we also have a .6 guidance counselor. We've increased the guidance counselor from .6 to .8, and this position going from .4 to .2. Just thinking that seemed to be a better match in meeting a broad range of student needs, and so that is the position we're looking to fill, is this .2, 1 day a week. But we have 2 really strong candidates that we'll be interviewing tomorrow, and are feeling pretty optimistic, and we'll see where it goes. Just really quickly, I'll give you the highlights from my written report since you didn't have a chance to read it prior to this. We had a number of folks, along with some folks from the high school, attend the International Baccalaureate, specifically MYP training in Florida, and at our May 13th in-service, they got a chance to really dig much deeper with our full faculty around MYP and what it really looks like and feels like in the classroom. Peter was able to come over today, talk with the faculty a little bit more about sort of where we are with IB and MYP specifically, and I think there's a lot of positivity growing at MUMS. We just got back from our New York City trip Friday night. It was great, went really smooth, considering 151 people on 3 coach buses maneuvering Manhattan. There's a lot of potential for things to happen, but it went great. The kids were really well behaved. Some of the highlights were the Museum of Natural History Broadway show, and unfortunately, every year a lot of the kids say the bus ride and the hotel stay is the best part of their trip. So we could do this trip a lot less expensively if that's all they want to do.
Didn't leave anybody behind.
We didn't leave anybody behind. No, we brought them all back. We didn't pick up any extras either, so that's all right too. And 8th graders got to visit MOHS the other day, which was great. They got them kind of excited about making the next step and looking forward to their increased independence. It's sort of interesting. 6th graders really look forward to coming to MUMS for the increased independence, and by the time end of 8th grade rolls around, 8th graders are realizing there's even more independence to be had, so for that very same reason, they're very much looking forward to getting over here to MUHS. And I thought the peer leaders did a great job. I got a chance to kind of see a number of them interacting with a lot of different groups, and they really, I think, represented the school very well. And 6th graders got to come and visit MUMS that same day. It was interesting, as the 8th graders were heading over here to MUHS, we passed the 6th graders on their way to MUMS, so it was very symbolic. And I think, much like the 8th graders, excited about the increased independence, those 6th graders, I think, were feeling the same way coming to MUMS, kind of getting jazzed about this next step for themselves. And just a few upcoming events. We go to Lake Dunmore on Friday, our annual trip to Lake Dunmore. Interestingly, this year, our band and choir have an opportunity to go to the Great Escape to perform and be judged, and also spend some time having fun there. So half of the school, the band, will be going to do that, band and choir, and the other half will be at Lake Dunmore that day. And our last day of school is Monday.
Is that when you do the move-up ceremony or
It
whatever
is,
you
yep.
call it nowadays?
Yep. And we finish with cake and the ever-popular Monument Farms chocolate milk. Its annual return to MUMS since we could no longer carry it a few years
Still
back.
legal.
Yes, that's right.
Kathy, anything more that we should know about in terms of graduation?
I don't think so. It's the same as every year.
Nick, anything you want to add while we are sort of going through reports here?
Finals are Thursday and Friday, and kids are studying very hard.
You are, however, as a senior exempt.
As a senior, I am relaxing.
And when do you guys have your day at Lake Dunmore?
What?
When do you have your day at Lake Dunmore?
It got moved to Thursday because of weather tomorrow. Yeah, so we start, I believe, at 5 for the picnic, and then at 6 for the actual raft race.
And is project graduation happening as well?
Yeah, on Saturday, right after, or a bit after graduation actually occurs.
And so, project graduation, they're trying to do a new thing this year. They're going to be going to a different bowling alley, which incorporates both the bowling alley and the arcade. And so they'll go there for half the time and then go to the health club for the remainder of the evening.
What time does the hypnotist come in?
I heard 4 in the morning, but I could be wrong. That's after a full night of running around bowling.
It's at
and
4 in the morning.
arcade.
It'll be after my bedtime.
I've been there twice for it. Everybody's very susceptible to suggestion about the time that
Well,
he
you're
shows
getting
up.
sleepy isn't really a
Yeah.
suggestion for you.
Great, thank you. All right, you want to lead us through some discussions about
Sure.
policy?
Sure. So in your materials, you got 3 policy reports, CFF, IAC, and AEA. These are required within policies. Some of our policies require reports, some do not. Sometimes these policies state specifically what's required, other times it's just, are you in compliance with the policy? One thing I will add in a review of IAC, pointed out by a board member actually, that I would like to verbally add that we are in compliance with the requirements based on statute that are cited in the report. And I will amend that report to clarify that. Any questions about the 3 reports?
Jerry?
Yeah, and looking at the IAC policy, Dr. Burroughs was just saying that some policies have specific requirements, and this is one. The last paragraph says, provide the school board or supervisory union board an annual report on the status of the ESS, including the report to the commissioner, information on the services and supports provided, the funding sources of the ESS, how the capacity of each ESS to meet its obligations has been addressed in school action plans, and the effectiveness of accommodations, supplementary aids, and services provided through the ESS. And now I admit that I haven't spent a lot of time carefully reading this, but looking over briefly, I don't see those things. For example, starting with the first one, the report to the commissioner. Can we assume that a report to the commissioner was made, but that it is not included here?
Any reason board members couldn't have access to that if they,
Oh, they
if they
could.
wanted it?
Yeah, they could. Yeah.
So it seems to me that, and by the way, the report concludes by saying ACSU policy needs to be updated to reflect current statute. This policy is not a required policy. It's not held by the ACSU board, although it is held by all other member boards. But given that the policy does have specific reporting requirements, it seems to me that those specific requirements should be followed.
Including the documentation.
Yeah. Right.
Is that a PDF that has already been created that can be
Well,
forwarded to anybody?
it's an accumulation of a lot of different, I mean, it's probably a very large packet of material.
There's more to it than just the secretary's report. There's
Yeah.
a bunch of requirements, as Jerry just specified. So may we ask that we revisit that and have a comprehensive report offered to us?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. So would you like me to bring all of those materials to the next meeting, or?
Would it make sense to make them available electronically with a summary? Some of the stuff is an evaluation from you or
Right.
one of your staff members.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
I'll put something together. Yep.
Anything further, folks, on those policy reports?
I had a question on central office staff evaluations.
Yeah.
It appeared that none of the senior staff were evaluated this year. Are they lumped in the alternate year, or are they not considered part of the staff that is evaluated?
Yeah,
under this
well,
policy?
they're evaluated, but when I did this report last year, I didn't include them in terms of central office staff, their administration, so they are being evaluated.
All right. Moving right along. Going to have a bit of a discussion now about the ACSD organizational meeting, and then maybe have Rick talk a little bit about further discussions about the roles of boards as we move forward.
So on the 22nd, as you all know, is the organization meeting. It's in the auditorium. We are doing our best to get the word out through every avenue we know of. We are sending a flyer with an invite to select folks, charter committee members, board members. I can pass some of these around. It really is just a kind of like a save the date with a little bit of information about the event. Secretary Holcomb will be here, and she will be leading the meeting. We have also invited Governor Jim Douglas as the presiding officer, which is exciting. We're putting together a group to sing the Star Spangled Banner, we're hoping, at the start. We're working with kids and summer vacation schedules, so we're still working on that, but hoping to put that together as well. As you all know, a ton went into this, and so I think the current boards, new boards, everyone. It would be wonderful to bring everyone together. I think it's a pretty historic event, and a lot of conversation, a lot of thought, and a lot of passion kind of went into getting to where we are. So it's sometimes hard to motivate to come out at night for another meeting. And we're all really busy, but I think this will be an important one. So that's my plea to come and
cake?
And there's cake afterwards. Yes,
Put that in big letters. Cake, free after.
Monument Farms chocolate milk, or
once Bill brings that to the.
We have I'm going to just, to sort of tie in with the formation of that board, we're going to jump ahead and just talk a little bit under report of the board. We have a discussion about the 2016-2017 board schedule. And this is being discussed as well within the executive committee, and
Which is the 21st.
which is on the 21st. And Rick, maybe you can just expand a little bit upon what that conversation will be like.
Well, yeah, I haven't got a heck of a lot to expand upon, but there's obviously a number of boards continuing to do work, and the ACSD board layered on top of that, and the conversation is going to revolve around how much of that work can we combine, how much reporting that involves the ACSD, does the ACSU boards and the district boards need to be involved in or need to be engaged in, and how do we execute that over the next several months. So if you have thoughts on that, please, we can discuss it a little bit now. We can take that to the executive committee meeting and come up with a plan.
And I really think that the conversation is what's our role on this board coming up for the next school year. You know, we know what we have to do, pay bills and deal with the stuff that we're legally obligated to deal with, but, you know, what further role do we want to play? And, you know, we are a board that is essentially a facsimile of the new board, 13 members, same division, and we may not feel as strongly about continuing to play a strong role. I think for some of the smaller boards who have traditionally been very involved, that you know, I think it's important that they all have a role going into next year as well, or a clear idea of what's coming up. But as Rick said, if people have thoughts about outside of our sort of legally obligated duties, what role we see for the UD3 board in the next school year and whatnot, please send them along to me, send them along to Rick. It's going to be a conversation to have at the executive committee, which Rick chairs, and just I'm on as a chair, and then Lorraine's on as secretary. But that's something to just think about.
When you're talking about the board schedule, are you talking about trying to coordinate them so that they...
That's a great question. That's something we're
That is
struggling
one of
with.
the
Yeah.
questions.
Okay.
There are two layers, I think, to it. One is the coordination of meetings. We have 11 of our 12. We have 12 members right now. Are current board members. So potentially looking at their meetings with their current boards, lining up with their meetings with the new board. So having some kind of coordination of meetings similar to our carousel that has come up. The frequency of meetings, some boards have been talking, current boards are talking about meeting every other month. And then the other layer, I think, is what is the content of the meeting and how do we avoid overlap where, I'm reporting, for example, to a local board and then to the same conversations happening at the ACSD board, and it's on the same substance. So just making sure that there's clarity. I think we set forth clarity initially. The conversation has been the big three of negotiations, policy, and budget for the new board. But I don't think that's probably refined enough for us to move forward into next year. I think, at least in our conversations in preparing for the executive committee meeting, we were talking about getting to a more of a clearer understanding of what the work will be for each board, so that we're working together.
Yeah, without being particularly onerous on like our current board, if we don't have something to do we need to meet monthly as opposed to every other month? And just trying to figure that out as we go along.
So what were you hoping to get on this agenda item today? Any kind of agreement?
Just to update you as to where the conversation is, and also just to say any thoughts.
Got it.
If you don't have any thoughts tonight, if you have thoughts as we move forward, pass them along to Rick or me.
Everyone, of course, is welcome on the 21st to join in that conversation.
Yeah, please. It's something we all sort of talk about and then sort of say, well, and then come back to, and it's all we're treading new ground here, so it's challenging.
Those will be in motion soon. We should have a plan.
And so continuing the thread of the ACSD board, it is now a 12-member board because of Peter and his hiring practices.
Yeah, well, thank you for that segue. So we did hire Josh Quinn, who was an ACSD board member. I did send out information today regarding that ACSD board appointment. That 30-day window to find a new board member and appoint a new board member, which will happen from the unified board, starts when the board forms on June 22nd. So the new board will have roughly a month to get information out about the open position and appoint a member to the ACSD board. We are fortunate to have Josh coming on to our team. Some of you know him through his work in the community. He is coming from a background, he's got a Master's of Business Administration. He has been working in a construction firm and doing the budgetary side, project management. He is going to bring, I think, a lot of leadership to the position. We are working on making sure he's got a great start and are putting together a kind of a plan to get him up and running quickly. It's going to be really busy next year in building a single budget. We're fortunate that Rutland Northeast is going through that right now with the same software system that we have. So we'll be working, I think, with our Cornwall resident, Brenda Fleming, who is the business manager there as well, in kind of learning together as we go forward. And he'll be starting on July 11th.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, Lorraine, you are up to talk about the Facilities Committee.
Okay. The Facilities Committee met yesterday morning, and we had a couple of bids to be presented with. One is the security camera system, and the other one was the corridor access / electric door locking system. And we had two bidders on each one. The low bidder for the corridor access electric door locking system was the Royal Group, and for the security camera, the low bidder was Marshall's Alarm. And it was recommended to us that we accept both of those bids. And so, although this isn't the action item, I'll be making that motion under Part C, that we approve both of those. The other thing we discussed at the meeting was we had a policy that we just currently created for naming of buildings, facilities, whatever. And Leonard, I believe, is going to be talking about that. It happens now that they've decided that they don't want to use that policy for Carl Simonowski, and they're now considering doing some sort of a memorial instead. And because that's not part of the policy, the Facilities Committee was a little concerned as to whether or not that's actually in our purview to be making a recommendation on that or not. So that's something that we discussed, and Leonard, I think, has some information he wants to share with the group.
Why don't we take care of the bids first?
Okay,
And
under
then
Part
we'll
C.
move on to that.
So I would move that we approve for the corridor access electric door locking system, the Royal Group for $40,657, and for the security camera system, Marshall's Alarm was the low bidder at $61,330.
Second.
Was that Mark?
Yep. Discussion or questions? Were these bids within what we thought they should be?
Close.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the entire project, which included lockers in both locker rooms at the high school and a wall and security enhancement at the middle school, will all come within and under the $300,000 that was approved in the article this winter. So there's a contingency in there in case we encounter something. But right now, these seem pretty solid.
Any further? All right. If not, all those in favor of awarding the bids as described by Lorraine, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Bids so awarded. All right. Leonard, talk to us about... And it doesn't mean we have to go back to and have a policy and
Well, yeah, it's been a battle. The committee I put together, I'll let you know who the committee was. I had Cindy Atkins, Peter Brakely, Dennis Smith, Sean Farrell, myself, and Drew Herman when he could make it on this committee. Originally, the plan was last year when I come to the board about a policy that we would name the building out there the tower after Carl. And when the policy finally got delivered, we pulled the committee back together, and in that time span, they didn't want to tie the tower just to Z because they felt it was going to tie it strictly to football, and since he was a teacher and supported all sports here at the school and the kids, that they thought they would like to do a sign that said in memory of Carl Z. Simoneski. And I brought a sign in the other day, and Bill and Peter were in the office together, and Peter had mentioned to me that because the sign that's up there now for Dr. Ray Collins Field is 17 feet, and Peter had said to me that when you do something in memory, it should be smaller. It really should be smaller, and he still, Peter thought that we should still bring it to the board to get their approval or ideas or whatever. And so I pulled the committee back together. I went to facilities, and then in the afternoon I pulled the committee back together, and Bill at the facilities had, he'd come out with figures, maybe something like a 3x6 or maybe up to 3x8, sort of a plaque on the building out there on the roadside for Carl. Well, so I pulled the committee together again on Monday afternoon, and none of us really liked that building is 25 feet wide, 30 feet high. And just to try to stick a 3x6 or a 3x7 or whatever it might be in that area, we didn't like the looks of it, so we spent some time, and I'd like to pass these out so we could get an idea of what what we're recommending. Let me pass these out here. I'll start over here with this one. I put together. I shouldn't say I. Sean and I put together a sign what it would look like with Dr. Ray Collins Field showing, and these are all the same, Rick. They're coming around. What the other ones are coming around, them are all the same. I just started to pile them in different sizes here.
what's the dimension of this one?
The dimensions of the two signs we got here are a 2x12 and a 2x10. Dr. Ray Collins Field here now is a 2x17, and we like the 2x12 mostly because it overhangs the arch a foot on each side. And maybe in this picture it may look a little more than that, but it isn't. It's overhanging the arch by a foot. But we did the other two to stand alone so you can see what they look like. And the 2x10 that's the size of the arch. The arch is 10 feet wide. So we made one that was the exact same size of the arch. It was suggested that we try to put it between the lights that are right there and over the arch. So that's what we're thinking of doing. The committee liked the looks of this better than a 3x6 or 3x7, and they just, that's why we're going now with in memory of Carl Z. Simoneski, beloved teacher and coach, and so we're bringing it here tonight to ask to let us move forward with that. But if the board's got other ideas, I personally certainly do not want to shrink that 2x10. I personally, I just think that that's within the, when you take a building that's that big or that wide and you try to put something smaller or shaped differently, I just don't think it would look quite as well.
All right, just to be clear, the 2x10 is what's being recommended?
No, the 2x12 is what's being recommended, okay. But the
2x12 is the one that's in the picture with Dr. Ray Collins Field.
Correct. And the 10 is the small one that just fits over the arch.
What's this other one?
What's that?
What's the other one that's separate?
We just want to show it to you standing alone.
Oh, okay.
That's all.
Okay.
We showed them together, what it would look like
Same
together.
one.
Yeah, that's the same sign, just we wanted to show them standing alone. So you get a better idea of what it's going to look like.
That's the only one.
So, yes, Peter.
Is the, so when you look at it and you see Ray Collins Field and then in memory of Z, to me it might not be clear if this is for the field house, that, you know, if it's for the field, in terms, because you've got two names, like one on top of the other.
Well, that was the other thing I spoke to you about the other day, that
Yeah.
the Friends of were going to do, and I did forget that here.
Yeah.
Inside the arch here, we're going to have a plaque put in there describing Z's history here at the high school. It's going to be all written out. As a matter of fact, it's already been written out. Cindy Atkins did that for us, and we you know, if this all moves forward, we want to put that there. And it was asked, actually, same time it was asked if we would go a step further and do the same thing for Ray Collins, because nobody knows how Ray Collins' sign ended up there and what he did. And so we certainly can do that. But to explain that out, Z's plaque will be hanging in there for people that, you know, didn't know Z and why that sign is there. So won't Ray Collins.
We got I guess, a couple of issues here we're dealing with, and that is that our policy that we adopted doesn't speak, it speaks to naming things, and this is an in-memory sign, and so, you know, is there a distinction? Is there not a distinction? We have to sort of think about that, and also just how we proceed and what's our role here. Sure, you got any thoughts you want to share?
My only thought is whether or not this constitutes naming a facility. If this board approved a motion to accept one of these signs, I would just take care of it. The policy doesn't prevent us from moving on putting up a sign. To my way of thinking, if I saw this sign in memory of, I would come to the conclusion that it referred to the building that the sign is attached to. But be that as it may, we can go ahead and approve a motion. The other way forward is to say, okay, our policy does not speak to this, therefore the superintendent could put up a sign if he wants to.
Other thoughts?
About revisiting the policy after this, aside from this decision, and adding language about memorial plaques and so forth.
Do that, yeah.
Bill?
Well, I would just think that if you're going to do that, that before you start setting precedents and putting stuff up, that you'd want to hold on this, because this really just came to us Monday afternoon, was that when we first...
I see you Friday. I see you Friday, and Monday morning we had facilities.
Yeah, thing. So, you know, it's been sort of a rush to do it, but again, I guess that's the will of the board in terms of what we want to do. It seems to me we would want to be careful about, you know, if you're going to change the policy to
set a precedent,
include memorial. I mean, and there was, to be honest, to be open, there was some, you know, concern about, well, if you are in effect, you know, memorializing them in a way that associates them with the press box, you know, there were some other folks that, you know, there's some other sensitivities within the community that might be have feelings about that, because there are certainly people that were very very close to that and worked in that facility. So.
Yeah, it is not uncommon to have several things there. You know, to have a Doc Collins Field, a Z press box, a Joe Stands, Michael Track, all in the same facility.
Ritter goalpost.
Yeah, it's Ritter's notes. It's not uncommon for it to have several naming opportunities in the same place, and it is Doc Collins Field, not press box. And I do think that if we are going to prove this without changing the policy, we should do it as a board and not put it on the superintendent for precedent purposes, or we revisit the policy and hold on this.
Originally, Leonard, the what we were expecting, correct, was going to be a proposal to name that tower
Yes.
after him, and basically with a sign that looks just like this.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yep.
So all we're really doing is changing the semantics here a little bit. I guess I'm in agreement with Jerry that I don't see a large distinction here. If I were to see this, is to me is almost equivalent to what was going to be proposed anyway. And I do think it's probably good to, I'm guessing we probably would have approved that. I don't see a big difference between this and that. But I do think we probably need to tweak the policy afterward. I don't know if anybody else has a thought on that.
Is there any, are there any photos of former teachers or administrators in the building in memory of? Has that happened? I'm racking my brain through the building right now. I don't think so.
We
have a bench in memory of Carl out in front of the office. I don't think there's a sign on the bench.
There's a plaque on that bench. We planted a tree and a plaque out on the field to commemorate Len's service. After Carl, there's a book award that's presented and named after him.
And a scholarship.
And a scholarship, and as Leonard has pointed out, he was more than, and I think part of what sort of confused all this was that he wasn't known just as a football guy. He was known as an excellent physics teacher and a faculty member who supported students in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different endeavors that weren't strictly athletics or football.
Correct. And in your committee work, Leonard, was there any talk of doing something in the school?
No, the only thing in the committee that was talk about in it, and Bob is way down the road here, is we wanted to put one of those sports activity signs down by the end of the driveway, so let people know what sporting events were happening, or not just sporting events, co-curricular events that were happening here at the school every day. And there's just no room down there that belongs to the school where we could put something like that, and that was the only, only other talk about doing something for Carl. That was it. Nothing as far as inside this school or anything.
And I'm just curious, why didn't you think of that? Or is that something is there a policy that discouraged? I'm just on a wall in the cafeteria, his photo, his list of accomplishments. I'm just curious why that wasn't thought of. That's because that seems like that would be the first thing I would think of.
Well, the committee, the committee felt outside is more visible, and we wanted to make sure that Carl wasn't forgotten, and that's why we're going the extra step of putting a plaque inside so people can read Carl's history, and
I think you'd admit that probably the committee was not wholly but primarily a football crowd, and because he had been a football coach,
right, except for Cindy, right?
I think that was their thinking, was football really at the basis.
Leonard, the facilities meeting, you spoke of the marquee as something that was preferential because it dealt with things beyond football, or potentially
Right.
did. And are you envisioning that if that was to come to pass a few years down the road, that this memorial would go away, that facility, that structure will be dedicated to him, and then this building will again be up for grabs for naming?
I'll be honest with you.
Have that conversation.
No, I'll be honest with you. When that happens, I will be out of the picture, because that's 10 to 20 years down the road.
Okay.
I couldn't. somebody out there will be, like I said to a couple guys on the committee, the younger generation will take over.
Kicking it down the road?
They tell me that it's a minimum of 10 years and could be as many as 20.
10 years and $250,000.
Yeah, exactly right.
$250,000
We got
now.
$750,000 in our...
The other thing that you should keep in mind is, I mean, unfortunately, we have, many very favored, valued faculty members who have passed away. And if we start getting into that thing about naming places at some point, you're going to run out of, classrooms to name them.
And need some construction projects.
If I could just add to that, because I've heard that not just from Bill, but I've heard that from other people. In my years of being involved, and it's been a long time, Carl is the only person that I know, and I'll say this right on camera, that has the qualities to deserve a naming of. We're not naming in memory of. I have not, as of yet, come across somebody else that I felt that was so deserving as Carl Simonescu. He just, he fits the bill for everything. I mean, what Carl was, he fits. And I can stand here and tell you right now, Carl wouldn't want me doing this, or wouldn't want the committee doing this. I can tell you that right now. He wouldn't want us doing that. But Carl is gone now, and we would like to recognize him and keep his memory alive.
And Leonard, you and I go way back, and I have great admiration for you. But I would have to say that, one of the things I love about you is your emotion and your heart when it comes to, recognizing what's important to you. I really appreciate it. That's a valuable thing. But there are other people within the school community who also have, although from a different perspective, an equal amount of heart about other people. And so, while I appreciate your perspective and how deeply held it is, but yeah, there are other folks out there who feel the same way, or who might feel the same way about other, deceased faculty members and stuff. So that's what the board has to sort of wrestle with.
I understand that.
Further question? Yes, Lorraine.
Well, I was just saying, so Leonard, you don't feel that it would be enough to just put a plaque inside of the thing, as you're planning to do anyway, to talk about Carl? You think you need to have something on display above as well?
The committee does, yep. Yep. And that's why we're here asking.
Good. Oh, go ahead, Lorraine.
I was going
Sorry.
to say, and are we going to be discussing, if we decide we want to do this, between the 2x10 and the 2x12?
Terry, does our policy speak to taking control over what it looks like?
No.
Do you have a mock-up of this one with the 2x10?
I just make a comment.
Together with that sign?
No.
Yeah.
No, I just have it standing alone.
Okay.
Nice to see. It would be nice to see the smaller one with that.
That's why we just put it over the arch, so that you can see that the arch is 10 feet and the sign is 10 feet. And the committee felt that the bigger sign, just a foot over each side of the arch, would look better than the 10, but we put the 10 there just in case the board felt differently, or...
Lorraine, yes, please.
And don't get mad at me. I already told you. I mean, when I drove by after the facilities committee meeting and I tried to envision, you had mentioned a 13-foot sign. And I don't know, something about a giant in-memory sign, it seems almost kind of tacky to me, which, and I don't mean that to sound in a bad thing, but I just was having trouble trying to envision it. So I definitely like the idea of smaller if it's going to happen. I don't know, there's just something about that I had trouble wrapping my head around.
Leonard, what we have here is black on white. I assume that's not necessarily what it's going to look like.
No. That's just the way we could do it with, Sean could do it with the computer.
Yeah.
It's definitely not going to be white.
Yes.
I might recommend, depending on the where the board wants to go in terms of approving or not approving based on policy or outside of policy, that I think tonight figuring out the size is probably pretty challenging, and that maybe that's something that the committee and the administration could work on together to come up with something that seemed like a fit.
I have confidence that you all could iron that out.
And maybe one suggestion, and again, this might be too far down the line, but instead of the big billboard of one person, possibly above the arch or to the side of the arch, there is a in memory of plaque, and names could be listed. So we're not
On the outside of it or inside the arch?
outside.
Outside.
And then you could add plaques inside for each person. So,
Well, there's 4 members on a plaque inside the arch right now.
and I, again, and probably these are details we shouldn't waste everybody's time with tonight, but that
Right.
might solve the big billboard problem, as well as potential other people that might be deserving to be recognized in a similar way. And I think help with maybe the tackiness, if that's the right word.
Yeah, I'm not,
And that's right.
not the right word,
But I think that there could be other people.
Garden or something like that. We do.
The thing about, the size, you talk about size, in the facilities committee yesterday, there was 3x6, 3x7, 3x8, somewhere it is in that vicinity. If you take the square footage, you're still dealing with the same kind of square footage if you went with a 2x10 or 2x12 as you would if you went with a 3x6, 3x7. They're all right there in that same vicinity as far as square footage, just shaped differently.
It occurred to me that in my recollection, the middle school has a memorial garden or some way of memorializing folks who have passed. And I recall back, and it wasn't there when I was there, but never mind how many years ago, but at Dennis Yarmouth Regional High School, they now have in their athletic complex on the hill, they have a sort of a beautiful memorial garden that's sort of a brick walk-around thing, and they have monuments and stones and stuff that commemorate. And this goes back quite a ways, so it even had Vietnam veterans that have died and passed away, and, as well as other folks who are associated with the school. So it was just when Bob Ritter mentioned that idea, that just sort of sprung up in my memory that the middle school does something, so you might want to be thinking about what the middle school's done too, in terms of why
believe
it's
it's
still
in the-
UD3.
It's a memorial garden for a specific student that I think was killed in a car accident. There's a small plaque in memory of that student.
So it seems to me that if this is not in memory of, but back to the original plan of Carl Z. Press Box, it solves the tackiness issue. It solves the concern about how we list that. It raises another issue I know about: is this the right person to dedicate the press box to? And it gets back to policy. If a marquee is 20 years down the road and $250,000 down the road and pie in the sky, or and nothing else is coming to mind, and he was tied to the football program, why don't we go back to the original plan? And apparently everyone is saying that's implied in this memory sign anyway. Is that, would that be?
I actually think I feel comfortable sort of saying that the policy applies to this because or if we take it as if, we're now arguing over, should it be naming the building after him or just having the sign up there, which I think Jerry accurately describes as basically doing the same thing. So to me, our policy, we should think about this in terms of our policy, and does it fit the criteria of the policy? And there's, we're batting around other ideas for other things, but this is the proposal that's in front of us. And so it seems to me we should talk about it, apply our policy, make a decision, and go, and then hopefully leave the issue over design review within the administration and the committee.
I'll make the motion to approve application of a sign. That's vague enough.
You can just read the text.
Well, I'm not going to do that, though, because I think we just said we're going to leave that up to the committee and the administration, are we not?
Is there an action item to do that, though?
There isn't, but I think we can go ahead and...
Include a name.
Well, there's a motion on the floor. I'll wait and speak.
So who seconded that?
Nobody.
I'll second it to continue the conversation.
Thank you, Mark. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things, and this is, I'm going to elaborate a little bit on what Bill was alluding to earlier, is not everybody walks onto the field realizing that this is a press box. And I know originally the idea was to have it named, the press box named after Z-Man. And
Well, can I just represent, to be fair, it's not just a press box, correct? I mean, don't we have coaches up there, people filming for game films?
it might be more, there's a press room, press box, but originally, the original idea was to have it addressed as a press box. And that's where I tend to shy away a little bit. And hearing the discussion that, we're sort of naming this wall after, the Z-Man, makes me start thinking, geez, how many more signs are we going to put up there? So I think it does start coming down to the policy in terms of if I think of press box, I think it's inappropriate. If I think of a wall, I'm much more okay with it because Z did do a lot, but he never spent any time in a press box. And other folks that have recently passed away. And I think that's a sensitivity piece in the community that Bill alludes to. So I think there is, I think we do have to be sensitive and careful as we move forward with this.
Anybody else want to weigh in here? We are going to have to vote in a moment. Jerry?
So the motion doesn't include a name. So I guess I would move to amend the motion to read that, and I'm only doing this because I think it should be clearer, that a sign be placed on the press box reading in memory of Carl Z. Szymanowski, beloved teacher and coach.
Do the movers and seconders have a problem with that?
We can vote on the amendment.
Or make it friendly.
Or make it friendly if
Yeah.
it wants to just change the motion. Okay. So, having said that, what I hear Mark saying is that he's, and correct me if I'm wrong, he's okay with the sign, but not here.
No, not completely. I think it's open to interpretation with this sign the way it is on this particular facade. And if there's a sign there without the name, without specifically press box, I'm much more okay with it. I'm more okay with it. I'm not okay with it if it says press box.
You like it as presented.
And as presented, the in memoriam, I'm okay with that.
Leonard, you can sit if you like.
Sorry. Nope.
But I think we're in a very we're in a very narrow corridor in terms of the interpretation of what this building is. I think it's open to interpretation, and I didn't realize that there were 4 other plaques inside the hallway.
They're not 4 other plaques, they're 4 other names on a plaque.
Oh, 1 plaque, 4 other names, and those are all in memoriam?
Given, because I'm not sure anybody really wants to vote this down, But given that it just came Friday and some of the suggestions that have been made, do you feel it's not worth the committee's time to get together again and talk about some of the suggestions, or that you feel like you've really vetted everything and this is it?
I'll never say never. Never say never, but I probably...
Particularly given, I didn't realize there were 4 other names under the arch that were in memorial also in that.
Just on one plaque there, one of them is Z's. One's Dick Bullock's, one's Dave Sears, and the other is Ziggy Livingston.
There's already a plaque for Carl? Did you just say?
There's a plaque in there recognizing people that were involved with the football program.
Oh, okay, one plaque for the...
One plaque with those 4 names on it. The plaque will grow over time, but right now there's 4 names on it that have, dedicated some time to football. And so we recognize them that way.
I guess I would... Oh, go ahead, Jerry.
I would move to table the motion.
Second.
That requires a 2/3 vote, and it's not debatable.
All right. So we have a motion to table, requires a 2/3 vote. I haven't done the math here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Somebody tell me what 2/3 of 8 is, and we'll be all set. To table the motion, not debatable.
So, you want to table it because of the...
It just appears, it appears to me that there are some significant issues here. People need to think about it.
Yeah, great.
And you seconded that, Nick?
Yes.
Or do we need a second for that?
Okay. All right. So the motion on the floor is to table the motion. Not debatable. 2/3 needed to approve it. All those in favor of tabling the motion, please raise your hand. And I would say we have the 2/3 needed. So the motion is tabled. However, I think that we need to be willing to come back and deal with this sooner rather than later. And I guess have some conversations among some people. I'm not quite sure. It would be the committee, and I guess the facilities committee, just to do maybe perhaps some refinement. Perhaps you folks could sort of hash out the issues that have been alluded to here.
And it is entirely possible we end up in the exact same place. And
That's right. That's right. And I think that we'll need to meet again, out of respect for the fact that this has been a process that has gone on and on and on as we've had to come up with policies and all that. And I think Leonard and the committee have been very patient, waiting to make this happen. And I think out of respect to that, we need to get through that next process as quick as possible and get back here and deal with it. Yes.
Although
Jerry.
I'd like to point out that the committee changed its proposal after the policy was adopted, so we don't bear the entire responsibility for delay here.
Yeah.
I don't see this as an urgent issue.
Yeah.
In fairness to Bill's comments there, can this board, or can Bill or Peter, somebody give us some guidance on how do we deal with a lot of other teachers or that have passed on? How does the committee deal with something like that moving forward?
That's why I suggested that we think that the board have an opportunity to think about how they want to deal with that. They took a request and thought about how they wanted to deal with naming a facility, but they weren't looking specifically at the issue of memorializing something, and it sounds like there's been some memorializing that's gone on already, and in 2 schools, and so how to tie that together and make a cohesive thing. Maybe that's something that can be added. I'm not a policy expert. I don't know whether that would be something that would be added to that policy or whether it would be a separate...
Yeah, I guess this is what I would say to the committee. In naming, if you were going to name the press box, that's going to be one thing that happens and it's named, and the press box is named for that person. There can be several or many people in memorial of. So having that sign that large for one person, when there might be other people that you want to memorialize in a similar way, I think this puts you in a little bit of a box. I do think that if it was going to be named for Z, the press box was going to be named for him.
Yeah, originally it was going to be called Z Tower. That was original.
And I think that that's what you're doing with this sign.
And then the committee felt differently when we finally when the policy got through, came through, and we got the committee back together. The committee just felt, after thinking about it long enough, that maybe we shouldn't be just tying him to football, and that's what they felt.
I don't disagree with that at all, but I also think that there might be other people that come along, or there might be people that people would want a memorial of, and that's going to be very limiting if that's the starting point for the next person too. So and like I said, we might end up back here, and that might be what we decide. It's just, I guess I wouldn't mind a little more time to think about it too.
Thanks, Barney. Yes, Bill?
And I mean, to give an example, for years, the Student Senate has struggled, I will say, to find a way to do something meaningful with these two courtyards, the courtyard here and the courtyard there, and the balance of that has always been, well, we've got classrooms and a library immediately adjacent. We don't want to have something going on there that's really loud and not appropriate for the proximity to classrooms, but maybe doing some kind of memorial gardening if that's the way. If that's what the board thinks it's important to memorialize some of the people that have served here, then looking at some options like that might be a way to meet everybody's needs. But again, that needs to be something that the community sort of pulls together.
Well, the one reason we have this policy is so that a group like Linda represents can come in here and make the argument that this deserves naming of, and so I think that'd be an important part of it. And I think that there are differences, when we are naming off of one person or another. The tragedy that I remember back when the Hannaford Career Center changed names, and it's not dissimilar to what we're talking about now. It was a long-term person teaching who died basically while in action, and I think that that's a little bit different than people who have been affiliated with the program in different ways, as opposed to somebody who's really been a full-time presence on this campus for a long time. But I think that we have to deal with the proposals that come in front of us, and those making the proposals have to give us a good, strong argument as to why this much real estate should be used. And I think if we think in those terms, maybe we'll work through this. But we have the option of untabling when we're ready, and hopefully we will get there on a timetable that suits everybody. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Leonard.
As a former board member, I want to apologize for taking up your guys' time tonight, because you're going to be home later. I really do apologize.
Still makes your record look good, though, Leonard.
I'm not Big Mac here.
Leonard, it still makes your record look good, though.
Absolutely. Take care, folks.
All right, thank you. Thanks to the Facilities Committee for working on this as well. Okay, did we just award the capital project bids, or are those different?
We did. We did that
Okay.
before.
All right, so those are all one and the same.
Yeah.
Approve FY17 tax anticipation note and borrowing.
Yeah, so the resolution.
All right, so we have a resolution. I'm going to read it. Somebody can move it. Where do I start reading? Okay, we're looking for the following resolution. The Middlebury Union School District number 3 Board of Directors authorize a 1-year operating line of credit to be used to pay operating expenses in anticipation of taxes in the amount of $1,346,830. The board authorized the treasurer or the ACSU business manager to borrow on this loan on behalf of the board. Tell me why that's in the past tense.
Because you're signing it.
Okay,
Once it's signed, then it's passed.
all right,
But in the motion, it should be.
all right. Anybody want to say so moved?
Thank God for former
Thank you,
English
Mark, has moved
teachers.
it. Second? Anybody? Second. Rick, seconds. All those in favor of what I just read, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Yeah.
Is there any conflict when the new board forms about who pays the bills and who approves that line of credit? Or is that when this board finally collapses and the other one takes over that we have to worry about who's authorizing what line of credit?
So what's going to happen is between now and July 1st, 2017, we're pretty much running status quo on our budgets.
Okay.
So the UD3 board still has oversight over the current budget.
Okay.
The new board does have to be able to borrow money. So one of the articles in the warnings for the 22nd is that the new board has to also borrow money, not a lot, over the next year as they're working through negotiations, budget development, etc. The board on July 1st, 2017, that shifts, and the new board then is borrowing, and the current board is not. So it's really at that July 1st, 2017 date where all that changes.
Okay.
But there probably will be, before the boards sail into the sunset in December and January 17-18, there will have to be, I think, some kind of potential borrowing, so that there'll have to be some kind of legal language to allow, if need be, in that 6-month window, if there's a deed issue and there's litigation or something, that may fall to the current boards now. So we'll have that all figured out.
This needs a bunch of signatures, and since there are a bunch of you at that end, it's going to go over that way. All right, agenda number 9, rescinding some policies. Jerry, would you like to get through that?
I move that the UD3 board rescind policies JFCF, hazing, JFJ, prevention of harassment of students, and JFJB, prevention of bullying of students.
Second.
Mark seconds, thank you. Any explanation? Why don't you just give a quick...
So we recently adopted JFJC, prevention of harassment, hazing, and bullying of students. That's a required policy that was put together by AOE that covers all three. So we have a policy currently that covers all three areas, and these others are now superfluous, and we can get rid of them.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor of rescinding those policies, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Anybody abstain? And off we go. Thank you, Jerry, for your continued work. We do have a quick executive session. It's just a very quick personnel update. And in terms of talking about our summer meeting schedule, I think, unless Peter had something specific to say about that, I think maybe we will we traditionally take off the summer until August. I think we'll stick with that unless otherwise needed. That sound appropriate?
Yep.
All right. And we'll keep you all posted.
Do you have a date for the August meeting, or is it just this first September, or the first Tuesday in August?
First, is it?
We generally, yeah, it would probably be we'd go with the 3rd.
The 3rd.
Yeah.
That's been, I think, traditionally
Yeah.
when it's been
Yeah.
at months.
At months. That's right. It'll be the 3rd. Okay, before we go into executive session, we've got other business, and I think it's important that we take a moment here to acknowledge Patrick and his departure from our graces. I don't think it's really any surprise to anybody on this board, Patrick's ascension through school leadership from being an assistant principal, and now superintendent. He came to us as a very young assistant principal. I don't know, to me it was always very clear that you had a steady, calm demeanor, but that you were always watching and learning, and with sort of hopes of moving on. When the time came to hire a new principal, it was pretty much a bit of a formality. Patrick was the obvious choice all along, and I think that you clearly fulfilled the confidence that the board and everybody else had in you. In the process of hiring the new principal, the search committee was made up almost entirely of mums, teachers, and staff. And throughout the process, there was this constant refrain among them, which was, well, you got to remember, we've been really lucky for the last few years. Oh, no, you got to remember, we've been really lucky for the last few years. And it just kept coming up over and over again. And as they were sort of recalibrating their expectations. And in fact, they have been very fortunate. We've all been very fortunate to have you with us. Mums is I think, a special place, and I think everybody agrees with that. And that is in no small measure part of your work, and we really appreciate it. And we wish you best of luck in your new endeavor, and we're glad you're going to be close by so we can keep an eye on you. We have a lovely commemorative plaque. It says Union District 3 School Board recognizes Patrick Green for outstanding leadership as the Middlebury Union Middle School Assistant Principal and Principal 2008 to 2016 with sincere gratitude. Congratulations.
It's been a very interesting 8 years. A steep learning curve, which is to be expected, I think, going into any new position, certainly first time in administration. So yeah, as a 29-year-old administrator when I was first hired, had a lot to learn, and I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of opportunities to do a lot of learning, and look forward to doing a lot more learning in the few years to come. And great to have all the resources for me also close by, and Peter and Bill and Kathy and all the other administrators in the district. I know there's a lot of folks just a phone call away, want to have a question about how to do something. And I appreciate you guys for being at the forefront of Act 46. I've been watching and paying close attention with a little different lens lately, and I'll be continuing to watch as things progress and kind of know where Addis Northeast's future lies with how that process all unfolds. So, thank you. Thanks for the opportunities. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
All right. Excellent. All right. Would somebody move that we go into executive session to discuss a personnel issue?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right. We will be in executive session just as soon as Dick wraps up here.